Everyone, back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris back with the Aftermath. This is the show we do when the dust has settled from the post-match reaction, instant reaction to Newcastle United's last game, which happened to be a boring 0-0 draw down on the south coast against Bournemouth. Was it a good result? Yes, we normally are rubbish against Bournemouth and lose games against them, so that was a bonus. That's probably the best performance we've put in for a long time against Bournemouth, but it was kind of lost in the melee of just the fact that we didn't offer a great deal of attacking threat, and that's a big concern, and a lot of people have been talking about it, and that's kind of my thoughts going into the aftermath here right now. Now, I haven't really wanted to talk about him too much because you got to move on from him. Alexander Isak being him, of course, the player that left us, the player that down tools, the player who refused to play for us, now got his move to Liverpool. And to be honest, he's not done sweet FA since he's been in the red shirt because he's had no pre-season. He's not fit enough to give the Alexander Isak optimum level that we saw for 3 years. And I think we're suffering a little bit from that as well at the moment because big Nick Woltemade has came into the side. I think he's an excellent player. I think he showed some real promise. He scored a good goal on his debut. He's got some lovely touches, holds the ball up well. Quick feet. We saw a little bit at the Bournemouth game even as well. His link-up play with Jacob Murphy was really good. But this is a tough ask for Newcastle United and our team to just suddenly click into gear and play with a centre-forward who's completely different to the last centre-forward that the whole team was geared up to feed for goals. And they did it very well because he scored a lot of goals. Jacob Murphy in particular being the key provider in the last season or two. But Woltemade is not going to give you what Isak gives you in terms of the creativity as well, that ability to spin, to pull players out wide, to use quick feet. Remember the goal against Everton? He's not going to do that kind of thing. That's not Nick Woltemade's game. Johan Visser is a lot more similar to Alexander Isak, but his injury came at a terrible time for Newcastle United because arguably if Visser's fit and he's in this squad, maybe he starts against Barcelona, we might win that game. He might take the Anthony Gordon chance and tuck it away. He might come off the bench against Bournemouth and get us a winner, in a really scrappy, ugly game because he's got the ability to play on the shoulder, quick runs in behind, can pull out wide, can hit rakers from 25 yards and score overhead kicks, all kinds of goals. Johan Visser is capable of scoring, and it couldn't have been a worse combination of things for Newcastle United, really. Losing Alexander Isak's speed, his ability to do that to teams, his creativity, and then also losing Johan Visser's ability to step into this side and give us something a lot more similar to what we've had for 3 years and give us more time to adapt our game when Nick Woltemade is in the team, whether he's off the bench or whether he starts. What we've had to do is put Nick Woltemade in from the start. And I think he's done really well in the first kind of 2 and a bit games that he's played. I think he showed exactly the kind of player that he is, that composure, that touch, the Berbatofs about him, as I say, but he's not Isak. And the rest of the team need to understand that and understand it really quickly because we're not feeding this lad. We're not playing to his strengths. He drops deep, he holds the ball, he holds defenders off, and he can flick a ball around a corner. Nobody's really gambling for that run. Murphy did it at the weekend, and I think Murphy, out of everybody, seems to have quickly understood Woltemade's game and figured out how that can work with his game. But our midfield don't run past the centre forward. That's not what they've done for the last 3 years, and they mainly haven't had to do that because of the Alexander Isak style striker that we had for 3 years. They didn't need to go past the centre forward. I mean, they probably should have done. They would have got more goals, but it doesn't help as well. All of this coupled with Harvey Barnes starting the season a little bit poorly, Anthony Elanga kind of being patchy, Anthony Gordon's stupid red card that's cost him 3 games of a suspension. So all these things are playing into the fact that Newcastle United lack creativity right now in front of goal, and that is the problem. Defensively, we're very sound. That includes the base of the midfield as well, tracking back and defending. We're very, very sound defensively. Nick Pope started the season really well, as has Fabian Schär and Dan Burn. Trippier, for me, has been good, but looks tired, and I think the sooner we get back to getting Team Livramento on the right wing back position or right back and Lewis Hall on the left, the better, because we need the consistency of play. Those two need to be able to offer attacking threat as well going forward, because if we don't have creativity from the midfield and the centre forward isn't going to do the kind of thing that the old centre forward did, we need that width. We need Lewis Hall bombing down the left, putting crosses into the 6'6" centre forward. We need Tino Livramento going by his man, cutting inside in the box, winning a penalty or something like that. We need that extra creativity, because at the minute we lack creativity in spades, and that's why we've got a 0-0 draw against Aston Villa, a 0-0 draw against Leeds, and a 0-0 draw down at Bournemouth as well. And didn't look like really penetrating, didn't look like scoring. The difference between obviously Villa and Leeds and Bournemouth is we had a centre forward, and to be fair, we should have had a penalty. I still stand by that. I think it was cowardice by Rob Jones for not giving it, and it was even more cowardice by VAR for not telling him that he was wrong and saying that he should have given it. You can't pull a centre forward shirt. I don't give a fuck how baggy his clothes are. You can't pull a player's shirt and stop him making a yard. That's a foul. That's a penalty. That's a free kick if it's outside of the box. And it just shows you how weak the officials are in the Premier League, and that's never going to change. It doesn't matter what rules the PGMOL put in place, they're always going to be shit, and that is not good. The standard of refereeing has gone horrendously bad in this country. It really, really has, and it costs you games. It's cost Newcastle 3 points there. I think if they get the pen, they put it away, they win the game 1-0. Were we great? Not really. Could we have been better? 100%. We need more confidence in the play. I saw Lewis Miley getting a lot of grief on social media, and I don't subscribe to that. I'm a huge fan of the player, as you know. I think one of the best descriptions I heard was probably the Jolly Journal lad said he's lacking that bravery and that courage, and I think that's what it is with Lewis Miley. The ability's there, but the appetite seems to have disappeared a little bit in terms of the belief in himself to get that pass and pull that pass off. We've seen this kid do this before. He's done it against Chelsea, he's done it against Paris Saint-Germain, he's done it against Manchester United, Man City, he's played well against Arsenal, he's played well against. We've seen Lewis Miley do things on the ball that no other midfielder, bar Sandro Tonali, really is able to do, threading passes through the lines, and that's what we need from Louis. We really need that confidence to come back. He's only a young man, and he's going to have good days and bad days, but he needs a little bit of consistency in a run in the team. Hopefully, he'll get a game against Bradford on Wednesday as well, and he might be able to grab that game by the scruff of the neck, given the oppositions in a lower league than us. They're having a great season, by the way. Don't take Bradford for granted at all. That's going to be a tough game, but that's the kind of game you think Lewis Miley might be able to grab a hold by the nuts and impose himself in the game, like he did against Bromley, like he did against Nottingham Forest, where he got that brilliant strike tucked away in the bottom of the corner. That's something we don't do either very well as a team. We don't get enough shots off and enough goals from the midfield three. We just don't. Now we've got Nick Woltemade, who's going to back into a defender, get a touch, lay it off. We need the midfield to pull a trigger when they're 20-25 yards from goal. We need it to happen. Tonali's got an unbelievable strike on it, but he's usually in the 6, so he's the furthest back of the 3. Bruno doesn't shoot enough and get enough goals. I know he's got one this season, that great goal against Liverpool where he fought for it, but maybe we need to change the formation a little bit to suit the new centre forward that we have. Maybe that double pivot that looked good against Bournemouth but didn't have the attacking threat. You throw Bruno into that midfield with a double pivot of maybe Miley and Tonali, for example, who can look after the ball well, and then Bruno can wander forward, get involved with the attacking play a little bit more. Or maybe when Joe Linton's fit and back, do you have Bruno and Tonali in the double pivot and Joe Linton becomes the attacking midfielder? My issue with Joe Linton is his ball retention is dreadful, and he doesn't take a lot of chances. He snatches at a lot of chances. So as an attacking midfielder, he's not particularly great there. Jacob Ramsey's probably the answer in that role, but he's injured. Again, Joe Willock is not the answer. Joe Willock has regressed so far as a Newcastle player. He shouldn't be anywhere near the squad, let alone the starting lineup. I thought he was dreadful against Bournemouth. Just bad decisions, loses the ball, scared to open his legs up and run in case he pulls a hamstring or something. He's at that bad stage of his career where he's worried about hurting himself, by letting the handbrake off and going, and that is a real problem for Newcastle because we don't need a player like that in our squad. We need someone to impact games, come in and do a job, and Joe Willock just doesn't look like he's doing it. But I think this is the big reason we're losing. We're not getting goals or we're not winning games. It's just the lack of creativity. I said in a group chat was in the other day, hindsight's a wonderful thing. We were linked to Jack Grealish on loan right throughout the summer, and most of us fans sneered at it. I think I said, I'm not sure he'd be the right player, but he could be good cover, out for Anthony Gordon on the left-hand side. Had we known then what we know now, Jack Grealish would have been a brilliant signing for Newcastle. Somebody to open up teams. Look what he's done for Everton. Look at the way he's run at teams and created and created goals and chances. He was excellent in the Merseyside derby against Liverpool as well. When you give Jack Grealish a bit of freedom to play, he's a very, very dangerous player, and that's what Newcastle lack right now is creativity. Somebody to do something out of nothing. It's great being regimental and organised and structured and all of that, but when games are just frustrating and people are digging in and it's 0-0, it's sideways and backwards passing, you need a player just to get the foot in the ball and pass a ball forward to the centre forward to create a chance, or just take a chance themselves and put it away. And players like Grealish, players like Maddison, you know, those kind of players, those are the players that can do that. And that is something I think this Newcastle squad has lacked for a long time, and it's never been more self-evident now than it is, because we've lost Alexander Isak, creativity in that team as well, and it is really showing. The team needs to learn how to adapt to playing to Nick Woltemade's strength, and I think that's going to involve a lot more responsibility from attacking threats from the midfield, which at the moment they're not doing. That needs to change, that needs to happen. We need to have some kind of attacking threat to join Nick Woltemade in that attack, you know, when he's holding the ball up, he's looking for runners to go past him. If the wingers aren't going to do it, which they should be doing, Harvey Barnes should be doing it, Anthony Elanga should be doing it, Jacob Murphy's done it a couple of times, but he's the only one who's done it. We need players to understand that Nick Woltemade is going to drop deep and look for those passes around the corner, and they need to make sure that they're running and playing to his strengths as well. It's going to take time to adapt. The problem that we have, and very like Isak with his lack of pre-season, Nick Woltemade has come into this team when the season is up and live and ready. Ideally, he would have come in pre-season. We could have had a couple of pre-season games with him, 3 or 4, to kind of work out what his strengths are and then figure out how we're going to use him. But we haven't got that luxury now. We're right in the thick of it. The Champions League's begun. The Premier League is already coming at you full pace. We're sitting in 13th. Yes, 1 win or 2 can put you back in the top 4, but Newcastle cannot continue to not score goals. It's great to be defensively resolute like we are, and that's brilliant, but we need to get creativity and goals into this team, and I really hope it happens soon. We've got Arsenal coming up in the Premier League next. It never gets easier for Newcastle, but we really do need to start figuring out a way to make it click in the final third, or that top 5 position that we've all thought about is going to be a real distant memory, guys. Well, let us know in the comments below what you think about that. I wasn't dissatisfied about the performance, frustrated at the lack of attacking threat. It's okay nullifying the opposition, but don't nullify yourself. That's my thoughts. But let me know yours. Like and subscribe, comment below. Keep it ever more. We'll be back with more content this week. We've got the preview and the post-match for the cup game against Bradford, but hopefully we'll see some of the fringe players step up and show the manager what they're capable of and win that game and get us through to the next round of the cup. And then we've got a massive game against title-chasing Arsenal at the weekend. So keep it ever more, guys. Have a belter. See you later.
Heroes celebrate. They have done it.